Utica. And she spent her family vacations camping in the Adirondacks, only an hour or two drive from home. She took up backpacking in the early 1990s, which seems just like yesterday. For our chapter, she was past program chair, and she is also a winter 46er. And Al is a retired architect. He grew up in Irondequoit. He started hiking and backpacking and canoeing, and it says here relatively late. He wrote this, and then it says 40s. So I was thinking 1940s? Oh, that was his age. Anyway, he's a 46er, a winter 46er, a Northeast 111er. For our chapter, he is the past trails chair. He was a chair, he was a vice chair, an education co-chair, and a trip leader, which all of that earned him to be one of our Genesee Valley Chapter Volunteer of the Year Award members, and he's also a member of the High Summit Honor Society. Yeah, we do that every year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So Kim and Al have backpacked the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier, the Wind River Range in Wyoming, Maroon Bells Loop near Aspen, along the coast of the Big Island in Hawaii, that's a nice collection. However, they also said that the John Muir Trail was by far the longest and the most challenging of them all. So please welcome Kim and Al.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight to our presentation. Thank you, Barb, for the introduction, especially what you said about Al. That was really fun. So thank you. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Sounds really loud to me.
It's really loud to you, but there are many people that need to hear you.
Okay. Is everybody good? This isn't too loud?
Good.
All right. So, okay. It's just like really loud. So, we started our journey for the John Muir Trail back in December of 2016. I couldn't figure out what to give Al for Christmas, so I decided to give him a guidebook to hiking the John Muir Trail and a new backpack, never thinking that we would ever hike this trail, and you'll hear why in just a minute. But first, let's talk about what the John Muir Trail is. So it's named after John Muir, everybody has probably heard, is the father of the national parks and also the founder of Sierra Club. The trail is considered one of the most beautiful and famous backpacking trails in the U.S., which unfortunately also has brought its share of problems to the trail because it's so popular. It's about 220 plus or minus miles in California's high Sierras, and 170 miles of the John Muir Trail coincides with the Pacific Crest Trail. It starts in Yosemite Valley and then goes to Mount Whitney and Whitney Portal. It's about 46,000 feet of elevation gain over those 200 and some miles. And generally, you're above 7,000 feet elevation. A lot of the time, you're at 10,000. There are 10 mountain passes that you go over, and 6 of them are over 11,000 feet. So we'll talk about acclimatization too. The construction of the trail began in 1917 and was completed 46 years later. And the typical hiker takes about 3 weeks to hike the trail. I did read that the fastest hike has been done in 3 days. Why you would want to do that in 3 days, I have no idea. And I don't also know how you've got food for that, but apparently you can do it in 3 days if you're motivated. So here's, let me get my laser pointer. So here's a map of California, just so we're all grounded geographically, with Yosemite here. So the trail starts in Yosemite and goes down to Mount Whitney here. It runs through Devil's Postpile National Monument and then ends down here. So this is the trail. This has to be one of the most intensive planning backpacking trips we've ever done. And it starts with trying to get a permit. And the permit application is not where you just go online, fill out the application, and you have a permit. Back in 2015, the National Park Service instituted a lottery. Because the trail is so highly used, they wanted to try to cut down on some of the use of the trail. So there is a lottery system. You can apply 24 weeks in advance of your start date, but they issue 45 hiker permits per day, which gives you about a 3% success rate given the number of hikers that apply. So if you look at this graph here, you can see in 2000, there was just under about 1,000 people yearly that would use the trail. Fast forward to 2016, and it's about over 3,500. So the usage really increased and put a lot of demand on the trail. So the Park Service instituted this 45 hiker per day. There are 5 trailheads that you can start from in Yosemite National Park. And of those 5 trailheads, 3 include a permit to climb Half Dome. And they're the highest in demand because everybody wants to climb Half Dome as part of their John Muir Trail experience. We did not do Half Dome when we went out because we had been out to Yosemite the year before and climbed Half Dome then. So we think that helped us getting our permit actually because we did not start at a trailhead that required the Half Dome permit. And of the 25 of the 45 permits that they issue daily start at Tuolumne Meadows, which is where we started, and they don't include Half Dome. So again, that increased our chances of getting a permit. Now, when we applied for a permit, we actually won the lottery the first time, much to my amazement, and it was to start hiking in June. Well, as the months went by, and we happened to notice that the Sierras were getting a higher than normal snowpack that year. So we started calling the Park Service, wondering where we're going to have to bring snowshoes, because we really didn't want to have to carry them for 200 and some miles. And there's also a lot of river crossings. And I talked to one ranger and said, I'm 5'1", you know, am I going to be able to get across the rivers? And his reply was, well, it could be problematic. So we canceled our permit in June and thought we'd apply again in July. No, we got it once, you'll probably get it again. So we actually tried for a 2-week window. You can give the Park Service your start date and your latest start date. So that was a 2-week window. And we did not win the lottery that time. So we thought we'd try a 3rd time. The 3rd time proved to be a charm for many reasons, and you'll see as we go on, had some wonderful experiences, and it all worked out going late in August, and I could get across the river, so it worked out well. Itinerary. We all know from hiking and stuff that you need to figure out how many miles per day you want to go. Also, the daily mileage. Elevation gain was very important for this trip, and also campsite location. I had mentioned there was 10 mountain passes to go over. You want to be positioned the night before at a campsite so that you can go over the pass very early in the morning. You don't want to be going over these passes at 11,000, 12,000 feet in the middle of the day when the daily thunderstorms roll in that seem to happen out in the Sierras. So that's another thing to consider. Acclimatization. As I talked about, these passes are very high, and you're also over 7,000 to 10,000 feet much of the time. So you want to get acclimatized, allow time for that. The map I showed you of California showed the trail going from Yosemite down to Mount Whitney. Most people hike it north to south. But if you chose to go south to north, you would actually, this is elevation over here, and it's probably hard to read, but it starts at 4,000, it goes up to about 15,000. If you decide to start it the opposite way to increase your chance of getting a permit, then you're actually going up to Mount Whitney like over 14,000 right out of the gate with your full pack. So not many people choose to do that. We started down here at Tuolumne Meadows. We didn't start here because, as I had mentioned, we didn't do Half Dome because we'd done it the year before, so we started here. So most people do go north to south. And travel logistics, since this is a point-to-point and not a loop hike, you need to figure out how you're going to get back to where you started or how you're going to get back to the airport. And so there's, air travel, rental cars, shuttles, public transit. They're all available. You probably will need to use some of all of these, and as it turns out, none of the schedules ever seem to coincide. So again, a lot of travel logistics in planning this. And then food. You have to use bear canisters for most of the trail, and you need to resupply unless you can fit 220 miles worth of food into your bear canisters, which I know we couldn't do. So you need to mail out your food ahead of time, and some of the resupplies require you to mail them out several weeks in advance. And then calories, which is not something we normally think about when we're hiking, but because of the altitude and miles we were doing every day, Al spent a lot of time, had a lot of spreadsheets developed to figure out how we could get the most calories, but not have overly heavy packs.
And I must admit that even with that work ahead of time, we still lost way too much weight.
Are you guys still okay with how this sounds? Okay, because it sounds awful to me, but okay. So just quickly, the resources that we use, there are many resources. There's obviously the National Park Service website, the John Muir Trail website. There are maps. There are phone apps now, and the PCT is Pacific Crest Trail phone app and the John Muir Trail phone app, and we use the PCT one.
It was free.
And then the infamous book that I bought Al for Christmas that started all this was a great resource. And anybody thinking of doing this, I would highly suggest you join the John Muir Trail Yahoo group. It's a wealth of information of people that are going to be hiking, have hiked. It has a crib sheet that has phone numbers of every possible thing you could think of you'd want, from car rentals and resupplied phone numbers. It's really a great website or Yahoo group. In fact, I'm still on the group because there's still stuff to learn because people will ask what's the best equipment. And then they also talk about the permit options. There's a John Muir Trail Facebook page. And then thanks to Shay and Bill from this chapter, they told us about a couple that live in Alaska, Brooks and Rita Wade. They had hiked the John Muir Trail and go back yearly to re-hike different parts of it. So they gave us their email, and we sent a lot of emails back and forth to Brooks and Rita, and they were very helpful with giving us advice. So I talked about resupply options. So here is where you would start your hike, and down here is where it ends. So there's 6 resupply options on the John Muir Trail. Some of them are right near the trail, and some of them are several miles off the trail, or 20 miles off the trail. We really didn't want to add more miles to an already long trip, so we chose to pick the resupply options that were close to the trail. So again, just in case you're wondering, this is the section we did not do the year we hiked the John Muir Trail, because we did it the year before when we were out in Yosemite, so we started here. We resupplied after 36 miles at Red Meadows. After that, we went another 50 miles and resupplied at Muir Trail Ranch. And then we carried food for 112 miles till we finished at Mount Whitney. So one of the things that I thought was really useful that I learned from this trip, I'm not the most organized person. This is one of our first campsites, but what I wanted to point out was this white piece of paper in the bear canister. I had never seen this before, done this, but actually it has our food listed in an Excel spreadsheet, so we knew what to eat every day to try to get the number of calories that we needed. And it really helped. Instead of pawing through our canister and figuring out what we're going to eat, we really tried to stick to that, so that was very useful.
I actually learned this trick from Barb.
So it took us 18 days to do the John Muir Trail, starting in Tuolumne Meadows. So here's kind of like an idea of our daily legs, alternating with the yellow and the red, and we hiked about 10 to 12 miles a day. Now just real quick, as I mentioned, the year before we had been out to Yosemite, to do some day hikes. We spent a week out there. So we did climb Half Dome at that point. Half Dome is also one of those hikes you need to get a permit for, a lottery now. It hadn't been that way when I did it 20 years ago, but this time you did. And we, again, we didn't win the lottery when we were home. So we get out to Half Dome, we get out to Yosemite, and we're trying to get a permit again, and it was to celebrate Al's 5th year anniversary from his bone marrow transplant, so it was really important that we climb Half Dome. That's what we wanted to do to celebrate. Finally, after not winning any lotteries, we heard that if you go to the ranger station at 6 a.m. the day before you want to hike, you can get a permit to do a backpack overnight. And then along with that permit comes a permit to hike Half Dome. And we were told that down at the bottom of these infamous rungs here, there are rangers who will check your permit. So even though we had our day packs and we weren't prepared to do a backpack, we managed to take just our tent, one sleeping bag to share between the two of us, and we backpacked in and we did Half Dome. But nobody was there to look at our permit. So on the way out, I found this poor forest ranger and made him look at my permit that I worked so hard to get. I couldn't believe it after all that. Nobody looked at it. I was going to have somebody look at that darn permit. And then when we were out there, Al says I said this is one of our day hikes in Yosemite. I apparently had altitude sickness then and said, Al, want to go hiking over there? Yeah, so that's what led to this adventure. So we flew into Reno and then rented a car one way to drive up to Mammoth. And we picked Mammoth for a couple of reasons. Mammoth is at 8,000 feet elevation, so we could do some acclimatization. And also it has a shuttle to take you to Yosemite. So going up our hotel here, those course flights, we were huffing and puffing at 8,000 feet, so we thought that was good acclimatization. We did several day hikes. And then, you know, for acclimatization, hydration is important. So, you know, we had to go to Mammoth Brewing to properly hydrate. And then we were off after a couple days to take the shuttle to Yosemite. And we made reservations. Apparently we didn't need reservations on this shuttle. And just as a side note, this girl sitting here, she was with her sister. They were both from Australia. And they were visiting California for a week-long concert. Heard about the John Muir Trail, decided on a whim, hey, let's go hike it. So they bought backpacks, I think the day before we met them, and now they were on the shuttle to go to get one of the walk-up permits that are available. You know, I was flabbergasted after the months of preparation we did. I don't know how they were gonna get food resupply or what. We never saw them on the trails, so we really don't know if they ever got a permit or not.
If they did get a permit and do it, I'm really gonna be annoyed that I wasted so much time.
So this is where we started our trip at Tuolumne Meadows Lodge. The upper left here is the lodge, and it has a restaurant there. We stayed at these tent cabins, and we're getting ready for our trip and celebrating here our beginning of our John Muir trip. So here we are at the very beginning. Packs aren't too bad here, because we know we're going to resupply in 36 miles.
And we're still clean.
So we're heading out of Tuolumne Meadows now. And in the distance, you can begin to see some of the mountains, but really nothing too spectacular here until we start going up Donahue Pass. And then the scenery starts changing, and you begin to see what the John Muir Trail looks like. The trail is pretty well maintained here, too. There really are a lot of trail signs that are needed. Our second night out, we had agreed to rendezvous with that couple, Brooks and Rita Wade, who Shay and Bill put us in touch with because they were going to be out there that year. So we agreed to meet them at Thousand Island Lakes. Now, this peak here through the smoke is Banner Peak, which was made famous by Ansel Adams. He has a famous photograph of that peak. His didn't have smoke in it or anything. So we met Rita and Brooke Wade. It was really nice to meet them finally after so many emails back and forth. And they kindly saved us a beautiful campsite. This is looking the opposite way from the smoke. But the smoke did make for some really interesting sunsets, I have to say that. Thankfully, the further south we got and away from Yosemite, we really didn't have a problem with smoke after that. The trails out there are really wonderfully maintained. You can see some examples here of some of the trail work. There is some forests that you go through that have been burned by the forest fires. These weren't our favorite kind of trails right there, but they didn't last more than a couple minutes. Switchbacks. We all love switchbacks for hiking, right? Switchbacks are our friends, especially when going up high altitude. And down here, you can see, to give you an idea of size, here's a couple hikers here going on this trail. And we came across pack horses once in a while. People can hire pack horses to bring their resupplies in. That's a very, very expensive option, but you can hire them and they will bring your food to certain points. Now, I had mentioned we canceled our first permit in June because of the snowpack. That late snowpack, or heavy snowpack, was still around when we came out there, and it made for great waterfalls. Thankfully, the river crossings had gone down, so we were able to get across the rivers. Many ways to go across the rivers. You can see here some of the nicely built bridges, the suspension bridge up here. But then we had some bridges that are like the typical Adirondack bridges that we're all used to. Okay, we're all used to those, and some boulder hopping. And then sometimes there really weren't any boulders, but we got across safely. No problems for me. So this is now, remember we started late August and we're into September, so this is some of the snow we still had that was out there. And as I mentioned, I still belong to that Yahoo group, and this year also has been a record snowfall out in the Sierras, and Tuolumne Meadows, where we stayed, is still not open yet. They're expecting it to open maybe mid-August because of the amount of snow there is. So the late snowfall and going so late in the year, another reason the third time was the charm is it made for wonderful wildflower viewing. So I think we were just so fortunate that we ended up going this time. There are some side trails you can take off of John Muir Trail. We chose only to do this one because, again, we didn't want to add more miles. But we really wanted to go to Devil's Postpile because we had heard about this, the volcanic formations, and it was really neat. You can see the hexagon shapes on the top. This is kind of looking from the side here, and here's the top where we were looking down here, and the pieces that had crumbled off. So Red Meadows is our first resupply after 36 miles. And they have a little bar and grill right here. They have showers, they have a laundry facility, so it was very nice. We resupplied this box right here, this priority mailbox. It's what we sent out our resupply in. And so we, took showers, washed our clothes after 3 days being out. Had burgers and beer. We had to hydrate again, very important. And then we continued on. So now we're 165 miles to Mount Whitney. Leaving Red's Meadows, we went through a forest again that had been burned. And then after this forest, we picked a campsite out. You have to stay in designated camping areas. So there's sites in these areas. And so we had picked one out. We were setting up our tent, and as we were setting up our tent, I noticed something on the ground. The John Muir Trail does not have privies. You have to dig cat holes. And as we were setting up our tent and putting in the stakes, I noticed people hadn't been really good about digging cat holes at this particular campsite. And there were a lot of ants. So this has been one of the problems. There's a lot of talk, if you Google it, about the John Muir Trail being loved to death, just from so many hikers and being used so much. So we quickly pulled up our stakes and picked up the tent and went to the next available designated camping area, which wasn't one of our highlights of our nights, but we made the best of it because we had our wine that we had sent out in our resupply box. So after this, the campsite's greatly improved. So here's just kind of like a smattering of showing the views in their different campsites. So again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of elevation. but you're rewarded with wonderful scenery. And I have to say, the John Muir Trail has, whether it's good or bad, set the bar really high now for what we like to hike and the scenery that we kind of look forward to. And having some snow left on the mountains too really made for really nice pictures and very scenic. This is Muir Trail Ranch. This is our last resupply. It is actually a dune ranch too. You see horses here. People can come there and do overnight backpacks on horseback. So this is, they have a family room here for hikers, a group room. It's kind of family dining. We had a wonderful pork roast cooked out over a grill. And here you see our resupply buckets. Muir Trail Ranch requires you to send your food out in these 5-gallon buckets so mice and critters won't chew through the cardboard. And now we sent out 2 buckets because we were going to be hungry for 112 miles. And here you can see other buckets hikers have sent out. These buckets actually get here by boat and horseback. Over here, this is kind of interesting, right along here are some buckets set up where hikers put in stuff they no longer want or stuff they sent out that they decided they didn't want. So the buckets are kind of organized. If you need sunscreen, there was a bucket probably with sunscreen in. If you needed bandages, there was a bucket for that. If you needed energy bars, there was a bucket for that. So it's kind of like a hiker's exchange along here. And then they also had, we stayed at these nice little cabins. Their showers were a little different from what we had at Red's Meadows. These showers were up on a platform, and the water just kind of went down through the slats onto the ground below. And here you see all of our food laid out on the bed, and we're sitting there thinking, how the heck are we going to fit this into 2 bear canisters?
We couldn't.
And then there's the laundry facilities. So this laundry facility involved these little tiny barrels. You put water in, the garden hose, you put your clothes in, put some soap in, kind of turn it around like you're making ice cream and hope you get some of the dust off, basically. You rinse it out, you hang it on a clothesline and hope it dries. But you could go sit in the hot tub after, or the hot springs afterwards, so it wasn't all so bad. So after we resupplied at the Muir Trail Ranch here, we were going to be hiking for 112 miles. So my pack was like 42 pounds. And so when I saw this picture Al took, I'm like, wow, I'm standing up pretty straight for all that. Just luckily I never fell backwards because I probably would never have gotten up. I'd be like a turtle. And then Al's pack was almost 50 pounds. So we're off with our loaded packs. Again, just awesome views all the time. And views you wouldn't expect, like, you know, you're in trees, you're on snow, you're in these alpine meadows with wildflowers. Again, the snow just made for great scenery. And then the third time was a charm for another reason. So we had wildflowers, we had snow. We met these 3 kids, we called them here. We happened to meet them crossing a stream. We were looking for a place to get across, and they had gone across. And they said, oh, go up here, and there's a log you can go across. So we thanked them, and then as the day went on, we'd run into them, they'd be taking a break, or we'd be taking a break, and we talked. And after a day or so of that, they said, hey, we want to hike with you. And we're like, really? We're like your parents' age. Why do you want to hike with us? But they adopted us, and we've adopted them. Al and I don't have kids, so they've become our adopted kids. And they keep us young. We have stayed in contact. We went hiking with them last year out in Colorado, and they just invited us down to Virginia for a trail family, a tramline pre-Thanksgiving. So I was thinking, when I was getting ready for the presentation here, I was like, this is really like the people you meet along the way, and these unexpected friendships that form are as great as the scenery, I think. So they've become very important in our life. This is a funny picture here because you see that one of our kids, Steve there, has a paper map, and the old guy, Al, because he went hiking in the 1940s, has a phone app. You know, you usually think of kids as having the new gadgets and stuff, right? And so they kind of were figuring out where we're going to hike the next day in camp, and they didn't always agree as how far the next campsite was. But we also, both of us, Al and I and the kids changed our plans until we could finish at the same time, finish on Whitney at the same time, come out, get cleaned up, and shower, and have a celebratory restaurant supper at the same time. So,
To clarify, we didn't shower together.
so this is emergency shelter at the top of Muir Trail, built in memory of John Muir. And again, you can see the snow as we're coming down, so this is like in September. This is the golden staircase. It is a switchback, but you can kind of see all the trail work they did here. And everybody was super friendly on the trail, except for these two people.
So I took their picture.
Yeah, so Al had to take the picture, and he insisted on putting this in. So we were climbing a pass, and I looked over, and I saw these people going across a snowfield. I'm like, look at those people, they've lost the trail, why aren't they on the trail? And as they got closer to us, I heard the woman say to her partner, oh, here come the mall walkers. And I'm like, mall walkers? I had never heard that. So when we got to the top here, and we went to sit down someplace, we went by them, and I said, excuse me, I heard you say mall walkers. What's that mean? I don't know what that means. She goes, oh, all of you people that are hiking on the John Muir Trail. We don't hike on the trail, we go cross country, and we don't like to talk to people. So that was the end of the conversation. Wildlife, we didn't see a lot of wildlife. A couple snakes, a lot of marmots. That was the thing we saw the most. These tadpoles, I felt so sorry for them because I wondered if they were ever going to have time to turn into frogs, because now it's September, you know, they're gonna be able to get in frogs before the next snowfall. And ptarmigans we saw. We did see a mother bear and her cub. She was leaving the campsite that we had been at. But that was our only bear sighting along the way. And then this whale's mouth. This is an iconic, you have to have your picture taken on the John Muir Trail by this famous rock here. So I was trying to get in, but my pack was too heavy, probably. And again, the scenery is just, it's really set the bar high. This is one of the plateaus we went across. You can see the thunderstorms starting to come in, so we were kind of hiking quickly across here to try to get into some shelter. And this is the top of our last pass we went over before we climbed Mount Whitney. And so we're at the top of Sequoia, or Forester Pass, excuse me. The elevation there is 13,200. And this is another flat. We were thankful sometimes to have just flat ground to hike on. And great sunsets. This is Guitar Lake. This is our last campsite before we climb Mount Whitney. And as I had mentioned, our kids kept us young. So 2 of our kids decided to sit or go swimming. Al and I were very happy to sit on the shore and watch, you know, like parents do, right? And then one of our kids, the one you saw in the picture with the map, said to Al, I'll go in if you go in. I overheard that and said, Al, when else are we going to swim in a glacial lake? So guess what happened next? Al and Kim went in with Steve. And it wasn't really swimming, it was like an in and out, but we were glad we did it. And like I said, they keep us young. This is just a view from the camping area. You can see that a lot of the campsites are actually on some rocks, granite like this. We're all huddled in together because it was really windy. And then this is starting up to Mount Whitney. We actually started in the dark. Most people do start in the dark, so everybody's going up with their headlamps and stuff. And then there we are at the top of Mount Whitney. And celebrating. And now we just have a real short, some slides with some music Al put together to show some more of the awesome scenery from our trip. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Kim and Al, thank you. I would love to offer you the opportunity for questions, but since we have planned 2 talks tonight, we have to move on into the next